Alaric Siege of Rome. History's turning point. The air in Rome, August 410 AD, smells of fear. It is a metallic tang on the tongue, a scent carried on the hot, dusty wind that whispers through the cypress trees. For 3 days, the city has held its breath. For 3 days, the only sound from beyond the massive Aurelian walls has been the distant, guttural murmur of an army waiting. Then, a new sound. A single, sharp crack. Then another. Not the thunderous boom of a battering ram, but something more insidious. The scrape of iron on stone. The groan of a wooden gate being forced, not shattered. The Salarian gate groans open. Not from the outside, but from within. From the darkness between the colossal stone blocks, a figure emerges. He is not a Roman. His frame is wrapped in a dark, woolen tunic, a long sword hanging at his hip. His face is weathered, his hair long and braided in the fashion of his people. He steps onto the sacred soil of the capital of the world, a place no foreign enemy has conquered in 800 years. He does not roar in triumph. He simply looks, his eyes scanning the wide, empty avenue, the towering temples, the silent, sleeping palaces. This is Alaric, king of the Goths. And Rome is his. The year is 410. The place, the very heart of an empire that stretches from the misty hills of Britannia to the deserts of Syria. But that heart is weak, fluttering irregularly. The Western Roman Empire is a gilded shell, its purple robes hiding a corpse. The government has fled to the marsh-bound safety of Ravenna. The legions, once the terror of the world, are now filled with the very barbarians they were meant to subdue. The treasury is empty, and in the streets of Rome, 1 million souls wait, trapped in a city that was once the master of the world, now a prisoner of its own decaying glory. Our story does not begin at the gates, but in the fog-shrouded forests beyond the Danube, decades earlier. A child is born into the Tervingi Goths. His name, Alaric. He grows up in the shadow of the Roman eagle, a symbol of both immense power and brutal oppression. He hears tales of Roman gold, Roman order, Roman cruelty. When his people are driven from their lands by the terrifying advance of the Huns, a faceless, unstoppable horde from the east, they beg the empire for sanctuary. The Emperor Valens allows them to cross the river, but the promise of safety is a lie. The Romans are corrupt, starving the Goths, selling them dog meat for the price of slaves. The air grows thick with resentment, a bitter smoke that chokes the lungs. It ignites at the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD. The Roman army, confident and heavy with armor, is lured into a trap and annihilated by Gothic cavalry. The Emperor Valens himself is killed, his body never found. The invincible legion has fallen. A young Alaric, perhaps a teenager, witnesses this. He sees the mighty can be bled. He learns the lesson that will define his life. Roman power is an illusion. We find him again years later, a commander of Gothic foederati, allied troops, in the service of Rome. He fights for the Emperor Theodosius, putting down a usurper. He wears Roman armor, follows Roman commands. But he is always the outsider, the barbarian. He watches the intricate, deadly dance of Roman politics, a nest of vipers in silk and purple. He sees the arrogance, the decadence, the sheer, staggering incompetence of the ruling class in Ravenna. He serves them, but he despises them. He wants what they have promised him, a home for his people, a place within the empire, not as supplicants, but as partners. His demands are simple: land, food, recognition. The response from the imperial court is a masterpiece of bureaucratic contempt. Delays, empty promises, obfuscation. The man in Ravenna pulling the strings is the Grand Chamberlain, Olympius. He whispers to the weak Emperor Honorius that Alaric is not to be trusted, that to treat with him is weakness. Olympius is a man who has never held a sword, never faced an enemy, yet he commands legions from a gilded chamber. He sends assassins instead of ambassadors. The plot fails, killing only Alaric's trust. Enraged, Alaric moves. For the first time, his army marches on Italy itself. He descends from the Alps like a winter storm. He lays siege to Rome itself in 408 AD, not to sack it, not yet, to squeeze it, to make the most powerful city in the world feel his grip. The aqueducts are cut. The grain shipments stop. The streets, once bustling, grow quiet, then desperate. The price of bread becomes a fantasy. Then, the unthinkable happens. The citizens begin to die. Not from swords, but from hunger. The air grows thick with the stench of decay and despair. The Senate, in a panic, tries to negotiate. They ask Alaric what he wants. "All your gold," he is said to have replied. "All your silver. All the precious goods in the city. And the freedom of every barbarian slave." Terrified, they agree. They melt down golden statues from the temples, even the goddess of victory herself, to pay his ransom. They deliver thousands of pounds of gold, silver, and silk. They release 40,000 Gothic slaves who immediately join Alaric's ranks, strengthening the very man who besieged them. The siege is lifted. Rome is saved, but it is humiliated. It is a ghost of its former self, stripped of its wealth and its pride. Alaric has proven his point. The mighty Rome can be brought to its knees. But he is still not satisfied. He still wants a home for his people. He wants a treaty, a formal title from the emperor. He wants to be a part of the Roman world, not just its destroyer. He tries again. He marches to Ravenna to negotiate. The response from Emperor Honorius, safe behind his marshes, is a letter of stunning, almost unbelievable, defiance. He refuses every term. He has done nothing to strengthen his armies, nothing to fortify Rome. His only act is to have his general, Cyrus, a rival Goth, launch a surprise attack on Alaric's camp. It is a petty, stupid act of betrayal. It is the final straw. Alaric stands before his war council, his face a mask of cold fury. The time for negotiation is over. The man who wanted to join Rome now realizes he must break it. He turns his gaze once more to the south, down the long, straight road to the eternal city. The decision is made. The fate of the world is about to turn on the pivot of one man's rage. The final march begins. The dust of the Via Flaminia rises in ochre clouds, staining the late summer sky. The Gothic host is on the move again. But this march is different. There is no longer the restless energy of men hoping for a parley. This is a death march. A silent, grim procession of 30,000 souls, warriors, women, children, wagons creaking with the plunder of a previous, lesser siege. Their footsteps are a dull, rhythmic thunder on the ancient paving stones, a funeral drum for an empire. At their head, Alaric rides, his eyes fixed on the horizon where Rome lies. He is no longer a petitioner. He is an instrument of fate. Inside the city, the silence is more terrifying than any noise. The aqueducts, broken months before, remain skeletal ruins against the sky. The fountains in the grand piazzas are dry, their marble basins filled with dust and debris. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, fear, and the faint, sweet odor of decay from those who have succumbed to hunger and disease in hidden alleys. The populace huddles behind the massive Aurelian walls, but these 20-mile circuits of brick and stone are a psychological crutch, not a military guarantee. The defenders are few, and their morale has been bled away by famine and betrayal. They watch the horizon, waiting for the relief that will never come from the cowardly court in Ravenna. Alaric's army surrounds the city for the third time, but there is no grand assault, no frenzied attempt to scale the walls. This is a patient, methodical strangulation. The Goths control every road, every river, every footpath. They are a noose being gently tightened. From the ramparts, the Romans can see the campfires of the besiegers at night, a constellation of hostile stars ringing their world. They can hear the distant sounds of their enemy, the barking of dogs, the whinny of horses, the occasional burst of guttural song. The normality of it is unnerving. Life goes on, just beyond their reach, while inside, life is slowly extinguished. Days blur into nights. Desperation curdles into madness. The old pagan whispers grow louder. Had Rome fallen because it abandoned the ancient gods for Christ? In a moment of surreal, public terror, the urban prefect, a Christian, allows the ancient rites to be performed once more in the temple of Jupiter Capitolinus, closed for centuries. The smell of sacrificial bulls' blood once again fills the sacred space, a pagan plea to a forgotten pantheon. It is an act of profound despair, a confession that the new god has failed them. But the Gothic ring does not break. The old gods, it seems, have abandoned Rome too. Then, on the night of August 23rd, the weather breaks. A savage summer storm rolls in from the hills. The sky cracks open with peals of thunder that shake the very foundations of the temples. Torrential rain lashes the streets, turning them into rivers of mud. The wind howls like the voices of the dead. On the walls, the few sentries huddle under whatever shelter they can find, their vision reduced to a few feet in the blinding downpour. They hear nothing but the storm. They see nothing in the impenetrable darkness. They do not see the small, silent party moving towards the Salarian Gate on the northeastern side of the city. They do not see the signal lamp, a single, brave pinpoint of light in the deluge, flashed 3 times from a tower near the gate. They do not hear the slow, grinding creak as the massive, bronze-reinforced wooden gates are pushed inward from within. The gate swings open. The act is not one of heroic force, but of quiet, desperate treason. Who opened it? History whispers a few names: the slaves who had not been freed in the last ransom, starving citizens promised food, perhaps even disaffected guards who saw no future in dying for an emperor who had abandoned them. The reason is lost to the storm and the centuries. All that matters is the result. The way is open. The first Goths who enter are not a rampaging horde. They are shadows, slipping through the curtain of rain, their forms distorted by the gloom. They move with a purpose that is both terrifying and disciplined. They secure the gatehouse, killing the few stunned guards who offer resistance. The sound of their struggles is swallowed by the roar of the wind. Then, the signal is given. A single, long, low blast on a horn, a sound that is more felt than heard. It is the sound the world has been waiting for. The storm is still raging as dawn bleeds a sickly grey light over the 7 hills. But a new sound now mixes with the fading thunder. It starts as a low rumble, like distant rocks falling, and grows into a cacophony that defies description. The Gothic army pours through the Salarian Gate, a river of iron and fury flooding into the heart of the Roman world. This is not a battle. It is a release of pent-up rage, hunger, and generations of resentment. The streets, so silent for days, are now a chaos of screams, splintering wood, and the clash of steel. The Goths do not march in formation. They spill through the city like a flood, breaking into smaller bands, each with its own target. They are not a faceless horde. They are individuals, driven by want and memory. A warrior who remembers his family dying of hunger because of Roman treachery now kicks in the door of a senator's villa. A man who was sold a loaf of bread for the price of his childless freedom now smashes a marble statue, searching for hidden gold. The sack has begun. But it is not the indiscriminate slaughter of legend, not yet. Alaric has given orders. Churches of the Apostle Peter and Paul are to be respected as places of sanctuary. Those who make it there are to be spared. It is a strange, paradoxical command from the man destroying Rome, a nod to the faith he has recently converted to, a flicker of the statesman he wanted to be. But in the chaotic, blood-soaked streets, such orders are only partially obeyed. The violence is intimate and horrific. The smell of smoke from burning insularly mixes with the coppery scent of blood and the pervasive stench of broken sewers. The sounds are a nightmare symphony. The shattering of priceless glass and pottery, the terrified screams of women, the triumphant shouts of looters, the desperate prayers of the faithful huddled in the basilicas. Goths on horseback charge down avenues built for triumphal processions, now running with gore. They break into the storerooms and find them nearly empty. They tear silks from the backs of patricians only to find emaciated bodies beneath. The great wealth of Rome is a myth, already consumed. For 3 days, the sack continues. The Goths are methodical. They have knowledge of the city, its layout, its hidden treasures. They knew where to go. They empty the palaces on the Palatine Hill, stripping gilded ceilings, tearing tapestries from the walls. They load wagons with silver plate, jewels, and sacks of coin, what little remains in the treasury. They take captives, thousands of them, senatorial daughters, skilled craftsmen, strong laborers. They are a people on the move, and human capital is as valuable as gold. The sister of the emperor himself, Galla Placidia, is taken. It is the ultimate humiliation. Through it all, Alaric is a spectral presence. He rides through the chaos, a king amidst the anarchy, watching his life's ambition fulfilled in the most terrible way possible. He has his home for his people now. It is the plundered corpse of the greatest city on earth. He stands in the Roman Forum, where the ghosts of Cicero and Caesar whisper from the stones, and watches his men pry gems from the statues of forgotten emperors. There is no triumph in his eyes, only a cold, hard satisfaction. The debt has been paid. The world has been put right. The barbarian has proven that the center cannot hold. The fall of Rome is not a sound. It is a silence that follows the screaming, a void where certainty once stood. And in that void, a new, darker age is waiting to be born. The third day dawns, but the sun is a blurred, blood-orange disk behind a veil of smoke. The sounds have changed. The initial, frenzied violence has subsided into a grim, systematic harvesting. The screams are fewer, replaced by the monotonous sounds of industry, the scrape of spades prying up mosaic floors, the grunts of men loading heavy chests onto wagons, the lowing of oxen driven through sacred spaces. The Gothic host is preparing to leave. They are not settlers. They are a force of nature, a flash flood that has peaked and is now receding, leaving a forever changed landscape in its wake. The scale of the plunder is staggering, yet strangely hollow. The wagons, hundreds of them, are piled high with the physical history of the Western world. Gold and silver from the temple of Jupiter Capitolinus, its sacred vessels now mere bullion. Silk garments and tapestries ripped from the palaces of the Palatine, smelling of perfume and the faint, lingering scent of their terrified former owners. Statues of emperors and gods, their heads knocked off for easier transport, their sightless marble eyes staring at a sky they were never meant to see. But the real treasure, the one that cannot be weighed, is the human cargo. A long, snaking line of captives, their hands bound, their faces blank with shock. Among them, moving in a bubble of stunned dignity, is Galla Placidia, sister to the emperor. She is a living trophy, a walking embodiment of the Gothic triumph and Roman shame. Alaric watches the exodus from a height, his face unreadable. He has won. He has done the impossible. He has taken the eternal city. But the victory is as ashen as the air he breathes. He did not want this, not like this. He wanted a treaty, a title, a patch of land for his people to call their own within the empire. He has been forced by the stupidity and arrogance of Ravenna to become the scourge of God instead of its partner. The city below is not conquered territory. It is a picked carcass. His army is richer, but they are still homeless, their future as uncertain as ever. They are now the most wanted fugitives in the world, their name cursed by a million lips. The Goths leave as they came, through the broken gate. Their departure is not a retreat but a withdrawal. They move south, a slow, ponderous serpent of people and wagons. Their goal is now the fertile grain fields of Sicily, and from there, perhaps, the coast of Africa, the breadbasket of the empire. They need a permanent home, and they mean to take it. But the world has been watching. The shockwave from the sack is already radiating outwards, traveling at the speed of a fast horse and a swift ship, soon to break upon the shores of every province. In the silent, corpse-like city left behind, the survivors emerge. They creep from the basilicas of St. Peter and St. Paul, where the Gothic respect for sanctuary had, for the most part, held. They stumble from hidden cellars and secret rooms in the catacombs. They blink in the smoky light, their world reduced to ruins. The stench is the first thing that assaults them, a complex perfume of smoke, spilled wine, rotting food, and, underneath it all, the sweet, cloying smell of death. Bodies lie in the streets, not in heaps, but singly, where they fell. Patricians in silk robes next to common slaves, their social distinctions erased by Gothic steel. The physical destruction is selective but profound. The fires have consumed entire districts of wooden tenements. The great public buildings on the Forum have been stripped of their valuables, their bronze doors pried off, their gilded roofs hacked away. But the shells remain. The city is not a smouldering ruin like Carthage. It is a violated one. Its soul has been ripped out. The confidence, the unshakable belief in Roma Eterna, eternal Rome, is gone, replaced by a visceral, trembling fear. The world, they now understand, is not a Roman order. It is chaos, waiting just beyond the light of a campfire. The news spreads, and with it, a psychic tremor that shakes the entire civilized world. In Ravenna, the Emperor Honorius is said to have received the news with baffling detachment. The chronicler Procopius would later record the infamous, likely apocryphal, story that when told Rome has perished, the emperor cried out in anguish, thinking only of his prized pet chicken, which he had named Roma. "But she was just eating out of my hand," he wailed. The story, whether true or not, encapsulates the profound disconnect of the ruling class. The reality was far more terrifying. In the city of Hippo, in North Africa, the great Bishop Augustine hears the news and feels the foundations of his own world tremble. His congregation is filled with refugees, with tales of horror. They ask him the question on everyone's lips: if Rome, the Christian empire, could fall, what did that mean for God's plan? His answer would become a monumental work, the City of God. In it, he argues that the fall of the earthly city is meaningless. The only true, eternal city is the city of God in heaven. It is a theological masterstroke that would console millions and shape Christian thought for a millennium. The sack of Rome had just birthed a new way of seeing the world. In the eastern capital of Constantinople, the emperor watches with a mixture of horror and opportunity. The Western Empire is now revealed as a hollow shell. Its prestige is shattered, its authority broken. The East would now see itself as the true heir of Rome, the last bastion of civilization. But for Alaric, there is no time to ponder his legacy. His journey south is his last. As his army moves through the sun-baked landscape of Bruttium, modern Calabria, aiming for the Strait of Messina and the ships to Sicily, his own fate catches up with him. It is not a Roman sword that finds him, but a sudden, violent fever. Perhaps dysentery, perhaps plague. The man who broke Rome is laid low by the smallest of nature's soldiers. Within days, the great king is dead. His death creates a panic among the Goths. They are leaderless, deep in hostile territory, with the most famous captive in the world and the wealth of an empire in their wagons. They need to hide his body, to protect it from desecration by the Romans who would surely hunt for it. They turn a river from its course, the Bucento. In the damp riverbed, they bury Alaric, along with the king's ransom of treasure from the sack of Rome. They then release the waters, allowing the river to flow back over its course, forever concealing the grave. The slaves who performed the labor are put to death to keep the secret. To this day, the tomb of Alaric, and the immense treasure it supposedly holds, has never been found. It is history's greatest ghost story, a final, tantalizing mystery from the man who ended the ancient world. The waters of the Bucento River return to their channel, a swirling, muddy curtain closing over a king and a secret. With Alaric's burial, the Gothic people are unmoored. The driving force, the brilliant, bitter strategist who had held their fractious nation together for a decade, is gone. A profound uncertainty settles over the camp, thicker than the river fog. They are stranded in the toe of Italy, their dream of Sicily shattered. The fleet they had assembled for the crossing is destroyed, some say by a storm, others whisper by Roman agents from the nearby port of Rhegium. They are trapped, laden with a fortune that feels more like a curse with every passing day. The man who steps into this void of leadership is Alaric's brother-in-law, Atholf. He is a different kind of Goth. Where Alaric was a force of nature, forged in the fires of Adrianople and Roman betrayal, Atholf is a pragmatist. He looks at the weary faces of his people, at the precious, cumbersome treasure, and at the imperial hostage, Galla Placidia, and he sees not instruments of vengeance, but bargaining chips. He understands that the Goths cannot survive as a perpetual army of pillagers. The sack of Rome was not a solution. It was a cataclysmic act of protest. The future, he realizes, lies not in destroying the Roman world, but in finding a place within its crumbling architecture. He turns his people north, away from the dead end of Italy, and into the province of Gaul. It is a land already teeming with other barbarian groups, Vandals, Alans, Suebi, who had crossed the frozen Rhine 2 years earlier and were carving out their own kingdoms from the empire's corpse. The Goths under Atholf are the new power, their reputation preceding them like a cold wind. They are the ones who did the unthinkable. They command a fearful respect, and in their midst travels Galla Placidia. Her captivity is not one of chains and dungeons. She is a prize, kept in a state of dignified, gilded confinement. She is a living, breathing fragment of the Roman imperial purple, a tangible link to the legitimacy the Goths so desperately crave. Atholf, in a move that shocks both Romans and Goths, does not treat her as a slave. He courts her. He is, by all accounts, captivated by the intelligent, resilient woman who carries herself with an authority that transcends her circumstances. In 414 AD, in the city of Narbonne, a wedding takes place that is as symbolic as it is strategic. The barbarian king weds the Roman princess. The ceremony is a surreal fusion of two worlds. Galla Placidia is dressed in royal Roman silks, likely salvaged from the plunder of her own city. She is given a wedding gift of 50 handsome young slaves, each dressed in fine silk and carrying a dish of gold overflowing with gems from the Roman treasury. It is her own wealth, given back to her. The message is clear. Atholf is not a destroyer, he is a restorer. He declares, according to the chronicler Erosius, that his initial ambition had been to wipe out the Roman name and replace it with a Gothic empire. But experience had taught him that the Goths, by their ungovernable barbarism, could not live under the rule of law. Therefore, he sought to use Gothic vigor to restore and uphold the Roman name. For a fleeting moment, it seems a new world is being born from the ashes of the old. A hybrid kingdom, where Gothic strength marries Roman law and legitimacy. Galla Placidia gives birth to a son, whom they name Theodosius, after her mighty father. He is a child of two worlds, the living embodiment of Atholf's dream. The child is hailed as the future emperor of a reunited Rome. But the dream is fragile, a candle flame in a storm. The imperial court in Ravenna, now under the control of the ruthless general Constantius, views this union not as a reconciliation, but as a grotesque parody and a direct threat. They blockade the ports of Gaul, cutting off the grain supply. They stir up other tribes against the Goths. The pressure mounts. The hybrid kingdom begins to fray at the edges. Then, tragedy strikes. The infant Theodosius dies. His death is more than a personal heartbreak for Atholf and Placidia. It is the death of a political idea. The symbol of unity is gone. The hope evaporates. Atholf, his dream in ruins, becomes embittered. Shortly after, in the palace at Barcelona, he is murdered by a loyal servant of a Gothic rival he had assassinated earlier. With his dying breath, he is said to have urged his brother to make peace with Rome. The great experiment is over. The fallout from the sack of Rome continues to ripple outward, reshaping the political and psychological landscape of the world. In the years that follow, the Visigoths, as this branch of the people would become known, finally achieved the goal Alaric had fought and died for. In 418, by a formal treaty with the emperor, they are granted land in southwestern Gaul, the kingdom of Aquitaine. They become the first of the barbarian peoples to establish a permanent, legally recognized kingdom on Roman soil. They do not destroy Roman society, they absorb it, ruling over a vast majority of Roman subjects, adopting Latin, and eventually converting from Arian Christianity to Catholicism. The Visigothic kingdom becomes a template for the future, the successor states that would one day become France, Spain, and Portugal. But the precedent was set by Alaric's violence. The sack of Rome was a signal fire, seen by every ambitious warlord from the Rhine to the Sahara. It demonstrated that the unthinkable was possible. The Vandal king Gaiseric, learning from Alaric's example, would not bother with lengthy sieges or negotiations. In 455, he sailed from Carthage, landed at the mouth of the Tiber, and walked into a nearly defenseless Rome, subjecting it to a far more thorough and brutal 2-week sack that would make the term vandalism synonymous with mindless destruction. The moral and philosophical debate ignited by the event burns for centuries. Was Alaric a villain or a victim of Roman perfidy? Was he the barbarian who ended civilization, or the reluctant revolutionary who exposed its rot? The Christian writers wrestled with it most fiercely. Was the sack a punishment from God for a pagan past, or for a sinful Christian present? Saint Jerome, writing from his monastery in Bethlehem, captured the universal shock. The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken. His words echo the sheer, disorienting impossibility of the event. The very grammar of history had been rewritten. The long-term consequences are almost too vast to comprehend. The collapse of centralized authority in the West accelerates dramatically. Trade networks disintegrate. Cities shrink behind their walls, their grand public spaces falling into disuse. The Roman army, once the guarantor of order, evaporates. The light of classical learning, preserved in papyrus and parchment, gutters. A great forgetting begins. The Dark Ages were not a single event, but a process. And the sack of Rome by Alaric the Goth was the moment the process became irreversible. It was the hinge upon which antiquity swung shut, and a colder, harder, more fragmented world was born. The treasure of Rome was scattered, its people enslaved or dispersed, and its confidence broken. But from its grave, new kingdoms, new identities, and a new Europe would slowly, painfully, begin to emerge. The end.